Algebra 2 3.3b, use function notation to find function values. I want to take a quick second right here to show you, when you look at my video numbers, what they mean is the first number is the chapter, the second number is the lesson, and that letter of the alphabet tells you what part of the lesson we're on. So if you see B, that means you missed A, okay? If this is the first time you're watching my videos. So you can go to this video's description and click on a link to see A. Or if you haven't seen any of the previous videos for Chapter 3, you may get confused, okay? So you're kind of walking into the middle of a movie here. But let's see what happens. So functions are usually named by letters, and because a function is a relation, the function f is a set of ordered pairs. And we can use x to represent the first number of an ordered pair, and f of x to represent the second number of the ordered pair. So think of x as the 2 and 3 as the y. See? It's the same thing as x and f of x. It's just a y, okay? No big deal, is it? It's just another silly name that the mathematicians gave to it. So it's the function of x, and that's the same thing as y. The function of x is read as the function of x. It doesn't mean we are supposed to multiply f to x. No, no, no. It's telling us that this is the function of x, all right? Like the function of a hammer is to put nails in, okay? The function of a car is to get you to work or school, okay? So that number that the function of x stands for is called the value of the function at x. We don't always use the letter f. Sometimes we may see or use a g of x or an h of x or a p of x. So think, we use letters of the alphabet to represent things like v for volume, p for price, g for gravity, or h for height. So don't get stuck on the f, okay? Have an open mind. It's just the function of x, all right? So if we're told we need to find the function of this g of the 2, well, remember, this is basically a y value, isn't it? Function of x is the y value. So when you see this, it's already telling you that the x is a 2. There it is. And this is the y value. So where is the x a 2? Right here. So we know the g of 2 is a 3, isn't it? And what about this one? Well, it's telling you the x is a 5. So where's the x of 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. So what's the y value at 2? So this g of 5 is a 2. See? Since we have the ordered pair 2, 3, then the g of 2 is a 3. There it is right there. That's the y value. And this g of 5 is a 2. It's right there. That's the y value. So we know the 2 and the 5 are the values for x. We look for the set of values of x as a 2 and a 5. Then we see the values of y, written as g of 2 and g of 5, as the 3 and the 2. No big deal, is it? See? You think you got it? All right, so take a look at this one. Some functions can be defined by formulas or equations, and we can find function values by making substitutions for the variables, just like we do with other equations and stuff, all right? So we have the function of x equals 2x squared minus 3. And if we need to find the function of 0, the function of negative 3, and the function of 4a, this first one, we set the function of 0. We know that's going to be the x value, right? So we're going to replace the 0 where the x is. See? So now we got 0 squared. We know that's the x value. So that's what we substitute in for the x value there, x squared. Well, 0 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So this function of x, this function, the 0, right here, it's a negative 3. See how we did that? We just knew that that was the x, so we plugged that in where the x was. We can do it with this negative 3. We just plug in the negative 3 where the x was, and negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 18 minus 3 is 15. See? And when we have the variable in here, because now we have to do this one, it's not as hard as you think if you know your exponents and your rules for exponents. So we have 4a in parentheses because this whole thing is squared, isn't it? If this is x, then this whole thing has to be squared to be this x squared, see? So that means we've got 4 squared and a squared. We distributed that exponent into both of them, okay? Well, 4 times 4 is 16, and this a squared is as far as it's going to go. So now we've got 2 times 16a squared. Well, 2 times 16a squared is 32a squared minus 3. That's as far as we can simplify it, see? All right, so keep your thinking caps on because I'm going to throw some other stuff at you. So I want you to remember, when you see this f of x or g of x or v of x or whatever it is, I want you to think that that's the x and that's the y. It's the same thing, all right? You're essentially finding the y value, but it's telling you what x is, okay? All right, so just remember, assigned letters are arbitrary, based on random choice or personal whim. That's what arbitrary means. Don't get stuck on an x, y, and an f, all right? If a equals b, then the function of a must equal b. Now, what if I had x and y there? Would that make more sense to your brain? But just remember, the letters are arbitrary. So let's say a and b are equal, okay? Let's say they're both 2. Then that means the function of x at 2 has got to equal the function of x at 2. They're equal, see? But if these two are equal, these don't have to be. If the function of a is equal to the function of b, a may or may not equal b. So it goes this direction with the a and the b can make those functions equal each other, but you can't go from the functions back to the lone variables, see? So look at what happens. What if we have an ordered pair of 1 and 1? Well, yeah, then they would be equal, wouldn't they? Because then the function of x at 1 is going to equal the 1. See, this whole thing equals the 1, and the x, or the a, depending on how you look at it, equals the 1. So think of a and b as x and y. Okay, well, what if the a value was a 2? All right? Then this entire thing, the function of this would be the 4, wouldn't it? Because this equals the y, this whole thing. So here the x equals the 2, but the whole thing equals the 4, see? Because you have to look at this as the y value. This whole thing is the y value, all right? Or in this case, the b value. So if the x were a 3, well, then this whole thing would be a 9. So it may or may not equal it. If the ordered pairs are the same number, then yeah, these functions can have a and b equaling each other. But if they're different values, then no. So it may or may not equal the a and the b, see? Where in this case, if a is 1 and b is 1, then yeah, those are going to be equal because they set it, don't they? They set the rule. We just can't go the other way back, all right? Now take a look at this. If the function of x equals 0, x might not equal 0. Well, this makes sense because remember, this equals y, all right? In an ordered pair, that would be the y, okay? So here we go. Here's the x and here's the y, right? But we're writing this as the function of x, like we've learned in the video, okay? Because it can be the same thing. It's just basically y, all right? So if this is the y value, just because it equals 0 doesn't mean x has to equal 0. It could. That's why I put might not. So in this case, it does equal the 0, but in this case, it doesn't. See? So if the function of x equals 0, x may not equal 0. See? It's almost so easy that it looks confusing. Okay? It's really, really, really a simple concept. If y equals 0, does x have to equal 0? No, x could be any number, right? So our next video is 3.2c. We're going to talk about how to find the domain of a function. It's the end of the lesson. It's the last video in this lesson 3. And I'm going to add this video to the Algebra II playlist. You can use it to catch up, review, or study for tests. And there's going to be a link to the Algebra I playlist chapters for graphs and linear equations and relations and functions. And I'm going to have a link to 3.3a, the very previous one. If you want to go to ones before that, just go to the Algebra II playlist and look for them, okay? Oh, all right, I know this is very, very confusing. If you remember my little chart, that might help you. And it might help to write this down. X values are the domain, the input, the X coordinate, the set of first members in a relation or ordered pair, and it's the abscissa. And the Y values are the range, the output, the Y coordinate, the function of X, the set of second members in a relation, like in an ordered pair. And it's also called the ordinate, all right? So if you can write that down, that might really help you. Stick it inside of a cardboard cover or a pocket of a spiral, and you can reflect back on that when you're doing your work, okay? And it'll help keep you from being confused when you see these come up, all right? One of the hardest parts about mathematics is trying to learn all these terms, okay? They're not that big of a deal. There's not that many of them, all right? You just slowly add them as you go, and you're fine. Okay, I'll see you in the next video, and we'll finish this lesson. Bye.